2017, 150,000 farms have shut down. Working farmland has been reduced by 21 million acres. The system has been crippling the remaining farmers, forcing some to adopt nefarious farming techniques, like pumping hormones and other performance-enhancing drugs into their cows so they can survive in crammed feedlots. Or the farmers are forced to jump ship and sell to land-hoarding, profit-chasing agricultural oligarchies, who use their billions of dollars to crush the competition and increase your family's dependence on their manufactured food. What could possibly go wrong? The family farm will soon be a thing of the past, unless you do something. You can. That's why there's From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that connects consumers directly with local farmers, which means you can buy fresh, non-factory farm food, and you'll know exactly where your food came from and how it was raised. For the first time in nearly 100 years, independent farms will have a way to not only survive, but thrive. From the Farm was founded by A.J. Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Entz, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to our weekly live podcast and Q&A. We've done this is the third week now. We've got a lot going on with From the Farm and the crowdfunding, as well as new producers coming on board. Lots of exciting things. Been doing a lot of traveling lately. But I'll get into that in just a second. So at this From the Farm Live, we're set up to take your questions. We're live across all of our platforms. So if you're watching from YouTube, Facebook, our X account, or Instagram, I am monitoring the different conversations and questions. So it's an open discussion. You're welcome to ask questions. I can display them on certain platforms to display this question and answer them. But really, the intention of this show, this weekly show, is we want to start helping you understand the food supply chain more as an individual consumer and a producer. If you're on here, maybe understanding on the other side what the consumers are looking for. I've been researching almost 5 years now our food supply chain, how to create food sovereignty and food security, where our current supply chain structure is at, what threats that we face or that face us with our food supply chain. And it's a lot. There's so many moving parts that I do not claim to be an expert. My goal is to try to meet as many experts in each area as possible to learn from them so that I can pass that information on. But I by no means claim to be an expert in any area. My goal is to help you get over the bullseye, then to provide the resources so that you can go and do further investigating on your own if you care to. So my goal is to get you over the bullseye so that you can see what's going on. We have so much going on in our lives that to try to take all of this in as an individual person who has your own life and all of the challenges and things that you're going through on your own, it's a lot. So trying to break this down in bite-sized chunks for people so that you guys can just get a good handle on what's happening. But I also don't want to just focus on the negative, because what we're doing it From the Farm and what I've seen many other people getting involved in these different conferences I'm going to, there's a lot of people working to make America healthy again, to fix our food supply chain, to bring more awareness and connection back to the local farmers and ranchers, and to help people get back into farming and ranching, depending on where you're at on that journey. So we just want to bring some clarity to this and help people kind of get over the bullseye a little better, so you guys know what's going on and what decisions are being made for your food supply, so that you can make the decisions necessary to make sure you're protected. So anyway, tonight I want to focus on what I've learned and what I know about our processing facilities, the slaughterhouses, specifically. In my journey for the last few years, I ended up in Cody, Wyoming, because we were part of a company that vertically integrated. The goal was to build a white label, to own the slaughterhouse, partner with ranchers so that we could have a stable supply chain. And then our customers would know that as long as they're buying from us, we have the supply chain covered. That's what brought me to Cody. It was never on my radar to be personally involved in USDA processing facilities or in slaughter. But the way God works is he drives you to where you got to go to help you understand what you need to understand if he calls you on a mission. So ended up in Cody, Wyoming, running a slaughterhouse. So from there, I did that for about a year, quite by accident. I was only supposed to oversee the whole operation of the brand, and ended up about 5 months in, some things changed with our employees and with the structure. And I found myself and my wife, we both found ourselves actually operating the facility. We were not good. It was an emergency situation that we were in. We were trying to struggle our way through it the best we could. Man, I got the hiccup. Sorry. And we learned a lot. From there, I ended up consulting at a USDA slaughterhouse called Utah Beef Producers. They are on FromTheFarm.org as a seller. The builder of that facility, the owner of that facility, Henry Barlow, he'll actually be on our show next week, so that you guys can get to know him and what's kind of behind the mindset of somebody willing to take that on. But I ended up working with him and consulting for him, finding avenues of revenue when they opened. I did that for about 6 to 9 months, and that was very rewarding. Probably the most rewarding thing about that was working with Henry himself. He's a fascinating individual. It was a special experience to work with somebody so driven and willing to take on such a big risk, quite literally alone, when it comes to the financing and the construction. So I'm excited to have him on next week, and that will kind of carry into this conversation of the USDA slaughterhouses. So, but what I want to do is highlight, or what we're going to do tonight is highlight some of the fragility of our food supply chain based around our slaughterhouses. So right now there's about 30 large scale processing facilities that process up to 6,000 head of cattle per day. Somewhere around 25,000 pigs per facility. And I think I was reading around 550,000 chickens in each facility, right? Because smaller animals, you can do more of them. Larger animals, you can't do as many in a day. So there's about 30 large-scale processing facilities that currently process about 50-something to 80% of the meat we consume in America, just 30. The rest of that is processed through about 1,500 custom exempt plants. So I'm going to share some things with you as we go through this. So I want to show you guys different processing facilities and what they can look like. So this one here, I'm going to share with you guys some facilities that a company called Friesla builds. I'm not associated with Friesla. I've been following them for a long time. In 2020, when we were looking at building a slaughterhouse, that's where I first came across Friesla. And I've just admired what they can do and their outside the box thinking when it comes to building processing facilities, especially when it comes to being able to stand up a facility in a rapid amount of time. Because we are at such a deficit, we need to be able to scale quickly in order to handle these things. So what you're looking at here is what they call mobile slaughter. So they build a processing facility, a slaughterhouse, out of a semi-trailer. And I've seen them at various sizes, but what'll happen is they'll kill the animal on site and then pull it up inside the trailer here. And this is where they process it. And then there's cold storage up at the top. And then a lot of times they'll take it back to a larger facility. So they'll slide it into the back there in like halves. And then they'll take it to another facility where they'll offload it, and then they'll further process it when it's ready to be processed. So that's what mobile slaughter looks like. Another system that Friesla came up with, which I think is really ingenious. I think they've been doing this setup longer than this setup here. So this is their modular processing facilities. This one happens to be in Montana. I've driven past it quite a bit, going up towards Livingston and Bozeman. But what you can see here is this is an application in production, and it looks very similar to this one here. So they call this the F1, the F2, and the F3, and they change in size so you can process more animals based on the size. What's really neat about this is they've designed this facility to be almost a plug and play as you grow. But because they're modular, they can be built off site, so they can constantly be in construction and then just hauled off on semis to be dropped in place, so they can stand processing facilities up quicker than a brick and mortar. A brick and mortar similar to what is done here at Utah Beef Producers. So this is the Utah Beef Producer facility. It used to be a beer distribution warehouse, and Henry took it over. We'll go into more of this in detail next week, but Henry took it over and then added this. You can see in the back there on the satellite image, that silver roof. They built a holding barn, and then they adapted that footprint to meet the needs of being a processing facility. So they took an existing building and converted it. He spent a lot of time and resources to get that up, but I would argue that in the long run, he did it for much cheaper than if he would have built from the ground up. Plus, the footprint was already there. And even though we had to go through a lot of hoops and hurdles around certain approval processes like wastewater treatment and solid waste treatment and those kinds of things on the facility, it was adaptable, and it's a beautiful facility. I mean, they did a really good job building that. So you've got mobile slaughter, you've got this modular setup, and then you have your brick and mortar setups as your different types of facilities. Now, when it comes to processing specifically, you've got 3 tiers of meat processing. You've got your USDA facilities, which allow you to process the animal, package it, and put the USDA stamp of approval on there. That USDA stamp of approval allows you to sell that meat across state lines after it's already been packaged. And so that's one of the values or the biggest benefit of that USDA stamp. The next tier down is what we call, or what's called, a state inspected facility. That means they follow all USDA standards and better, but they don't have the government USDA, they don't have the government USDA stamp of approval. It's state inspected, which means you can process your animals, package them, and sell them after they're packaged, as long as they don't cross state lines. And so that's your state inspected facilities. And then your last one down is what they call custom or custom exempt. That means that it could be a really small mom and pop, or it could be this mobile slaughter, although they do have USDA inspected mobile slaughter. But at that point, you have to buy the animal alive on the hoof. We talked about this in last week's show about how to source meat in bulk so you can save money. But when it's done custom, that animal already has to be owned by the end consumer. So if I own livestock and I only have access to a custom facility, or if I own the custom facility and I also own the slaughter, the cattle, whatever that arrangement is, I need to sell that animal to you while it's still alive. And now your name goes on the brand inspection. So when it's ready for processing, the brand inspector will look and say, okay, that animal has been purchased by the Jones. And so they already own it, and they're contracting this custom facility. So, and because you own it, you can choose how you want it processed because it's yours. I mean, you could hire a guy to come and just do it all in your backyard for you. And that's fine because it is your animal. So that's your custom style facilities. So back to our numbers here, 1,500 custom exempt. Mobile slaughter is around 20 or less, according to the research that I was able to find. And that changes a lot, especially after COVID. They put all this grant money in that allowed for more processing facilities to be stood up, because it became very clear after COVID how vulnerable we are because of the supply chain disruption. And so they put like $1 billion in to help increase processing. A lot of people went in and got that money and built slaughterhouses. A few years later, we're seeing a lot of them close. They're really hard to run. They're really hard to run and make it profitable, which is why we are partnering with small USDA or not just USDA, but small slaughterhouses in general that want to have their own label. So let's say I own the slaughterhouse and I typically just process for my local ranchers. They bring their animals to me and process. Promise you guys I'll get to your questions in a second if you're waiting. But um, I lost my train of thought. So shoot, I'll come back to that. Some of you want to chime in there and let me know where I was at, but that's a little ADD moment, little squirrel. Anyway, so I own the oh, that's where I was at. So I own the processing facility, but I need to make revenue to stay open. Well, I can't make enough revenue just processing animals for my local ranchers because what we typically happens is you'll charge the rancher a kill fee. So a fee to put the animal down, to skin it and gut it. Then it goes into the aging cooler. And then when it's ready to be processed, then that facility will charge the rancher a cut and wrap fee. And that's typically a per pound. I've heard of kill fees being from anywhere from $50 all the way up to, in California, $175, which is crazy. There's so little margin in there, but the slaughterhouses aren't trying to take advantage of anybody. It's just really expensive. Their costs have gone up too. So to offset that, if a processing facility makes their own label and then either has their own cattle or buys cattle from local ranchers, processes it and labels it with their own custom label. Like here it was Regenerative Pastures and Wyoming Legacy Meats. Those were the two brands, and all of our meat came from our local ranchers, so we could tell you right where it came from. But that was to add extra revenue for us because we weren't making enough as a just processing for the ranchers. And so these smaller facilities need to have this other downstream revenue, whether it's actual meat or value-added products, things like jerkies and snack sticks and beef tallow. And in some cases, organ meats have become really popular. Those used to be thrown away, but people have become much more educated on the importance of eating organ meats for their health. And so they've become a valuable commodity versus a throwaway item. So we've got, and then with that, the last thing is 800 smaller federally inspected plants. So those are your small, like the ones we had the one we have here in Cody, Wyoming Legacy Meats, which does 35 head a week, but is still USDA. So in other words, we have very few processing facilities in our entire country to process the amount of meat that we need to eat as consumers or to keep up with what's being raised. And so that puts us in a really vulnerable place. I'm always telling people that the reason our food supply chain is so vulnerable is because of its complexity. And there's many touch points to that, but specific on the slaughterhouse side, I was in a conference a couple of weeks ago and we had some experts talking about, the immigration issue and the amount of people here from other countries that intend to do us harm. They had all the data and numbers. I don't have them with me, unfortunately, but my concern, and this is just AJ's concern from what I do, paying attention, reading into this, but my concern is slaughterhouses are a soft target, meaning they're not heavily fortified. And so if you take out a few of our processing facilities, you cause major disruptions in the supply chain. So for example, this plant right here, Tyson Fire, there's a plant in Kansas that burnt down in 2019, and it processed 6%. A single plant processed 6% of our nation's beef, and it burnt down. And when it burnt down, you saw a direct reflection in the price of beef because of one facility. It just jumped right up. And so we have this really vulnerable system because of how few processing plants we have, because it's become consolidated under these monster brands. And their focus is process efficiency so they can maximize revenue. And so that's where we're at. So let me jump on. I've got more comments on Instagram right now. It seems to take a little longer for the other places. So let me jump over here to Instagram and answer some of your questions while we're rolling through this. Let's see. What's the turnaround for the online orders to delivery, or are you back in St. George for us to pick up? Good question. So On fromthefarm.org, you can buy from ranchers and farmers all across the nation. So if you go to fromthefarm.org, our goal there is to connect you with somebody as close as possible. We're still growing, so you may be somewhere where you have to have it shipped a few hundred miles away, but we've got a pretty decent spread across the map right now, and we're always adding more. So if you go on to fromthefarm.org, you can find somebody. In St. George, we've got a few producers down in that area, so you can probably have something shipped within the next week, for sure. Just looking at meat and my local farmers, how can you help? So fromthefarm.org, not sure where you live, but if you check that out. In Southern California, would you love to find local farmers here? Check out fromthefarm.org. I don't have anybody in Southern California yet, but I'm talking to a few people. But in the meantime, some producers will ship to you. If you Florida, we've got somebody on there, a few on there in Florida. So if you go to, again, fromthefarm.org, it's scrolling right down there at the bottom, folks. So if you want to go check that out. Somebody else said, I grow a lot of food, but don't do beef, not enough space to raise. So we do chickens and eggs and veggies. Fantastic. If you're not on our platform, we would love to have you there, especially the chicken. Chicken is a massively growing market and industry. People are looking for locally grown chickens so that they can trust its upbringing, its rate, how you raise it. But there's not many people because chickens have their own challenges. With chicken, I can sell. I think this is across most of the nation, but I can sell up to 1,000 birds a year without having to have any special facility. So I can grow them in my backyard, process them in my backyard, and sell them to you under 1,000. If I get over 1,000, I now have to do a brick and mortar facility, and then I don't have to have any special inspections. I don't think there might be some easier barriers there, but then I can process up to 25,000 birds in that brick and mortar. But if you're raising the birds, that's a lot of work. Very few people are willing to raise the birds and go into the processing, but they're out there, and we're starting to connect with them as well. So if you're one of those, we would love to help you if you need it. Do these mobile processing facilities also require FDA inspection? I think you said later I answered that. Some of them do, and some of them do have that. So let's see. Okay, cool. I think I answered your questions. I used to work at a slaughterhouse. I was the president of the organization, but I do not own one myself, nor do I want to. but with that said, if From the Farm, or as From the Farm grows and reaches, levels of success where we have the ability, we will find partners to put processing facilities around the country where they're needed, where they don't have them. Now, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal. We have to be pretty large to invest in that kind of infrastructure. But, we launched From the Farm to help create an entire new opportunity for people to grow and sell and buy food. And if we disrupt a market similar to what, Airbnb did in their industry or Uber did in theirs, then I can see us being successful enough where we can participate in supporting the physical infrastructure where it's needed. Queen Creek, Arizona, I have a producer and processors down there. If you check out the website, 40 birds. Gotcha. 40 birds. Yeah. We did 40 ourselves, and that's what's in our freezer. So anyway, so we've got this consolidation, which causes this vulnerability. This graph right here shows, and I've got links to all this that I'll share with to the actual articles, but I've got links to these where I got these articles from. If you want a deep dive, I'll post it when this replay is put up. But this shows you all of the beef processing facilities, the largest 100 meat packing plants as of 2021. And so this is beef, this is chicken, and excuse me, this is your hogs, your pigs, the swine. So that's just a map to give you a sense of where they are located. And you're going to see that most of them are in the East Coast. There's more water there, which means they can feed more livestock, which makes a difference. I know a lot of producers raising large numbers of cattle, and they send them when they're ready to places like Kansas, where they're known for their feedlots, to finish them out. mostly people in the West because they don't have the forage volume to fatten them themselves as of right now. So the other thing that we are subject to with the consolidation are things like cyber attacks. So in 2021, just after COVID, JBS had a massive cyber attack that caused them. Let's see, I got some details right here. The JBS ransomware attack in 2021 is a notable example of how vulnerable the U.S. meat supply chain is to cyber threats. The attack occurred at the end of May 2021 and forced JBS, the world's largest meat supplier, to shut down operations across North America and Australia. In the U.S., this caused a temporary halt in production at 13 meat processing plants, which account for nearly 20% of the country's beef supply. The attack led to immediate concerns about potential meat shortages and price increases, as JBS controls a significant portion of the U.S. meat market. The ransomware was deployed by the Russian-linked cyber criminal group R-Evil, and JBS ultimately paid an $11 million ransom to resolve the situation and restore operations. This attack underscored the fragility of the centralized food system and raised awareness about the needs for stronger cybersecurity measures with critical infrastructure sectors like food processing. So that's what this, deal is talking about here. So they had to pay ransom, but it shut down 20% of the nation's meat supply chain. So if you guys remember when, you went to the store and they had limits on what you could buy, that was all part of everything that had gone on since COVID and then this cyber shutdown of our processing facilities. So it's, as you can see, it's pretty fragile. This graph here shows the decline in our federally inspected plants. So cattle is this little blue line that you can see at the top there, and then it curves up right at the end. I think right there at the end in 2021 is probably when they started incorporating some of those funds, but that might have been a little early in that timeline, in that process. But you can see that we've definitely had a consolidation, which just leads to more vulnerabilities in the food supply chain. So let me see what this one is here. There's just a couple more articles showing all the different threats that our food supply chain is under. And this article was put out by the White House, and it talks about, and again, I have the link for this, but it talks about addressing the concentration in meat processing industry to lower food prices for American families. So they're talking about the concentration as part of the reason why food prices are going up so much, which that's definitely a factor. There's many other factors involved, such as import, export, the decline of our small family farms and ranches, the decline in the number of cattle in our country. That all contributes, but certainly when you have 4 mega corporations controlling 85% of the meat supply, they have a pretty good handle on what that looks like. So, let's see. Got a question here online. Hey, Jay, do you have the data on what they are finding with organic fertilizers used on the ground for crops that feed the cattle? I don't have the data with me. I can do some research and we'll do a topic on that in the future. That'll be more around different ways to probably raise livestock, just to introduce people to that, so you know what to ask for if you're looking for different types, between organic or regenerative or corn and grain finish, whatever your particular choice of beef specifically, or even food produce grown. We're meeting some really cool people in the grain space that are getting away from and have gotten away from glyphosate, all of those things. So we'll cover that on a future episode. I appreciate that question though, Brian. In North Bay Area, California, if you're looking for beef or cheese, look up Pachico Farm in Petaluma. Good people. Awesome. So wanted to keep this pretty short. Answer questions if you guys have them, send them in now. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up pretty early, but I just wanted to spend the evening talking about the food supply chain from the perspective of our meat processing facilities, offer you some knowledge and education around the different types of facilities that are out there, so that as you start looking for local beef or local food, you have some context into what's going on. just to share with you guys, as you see down on the ticker there, we are in the middle of raising money for our crowdfunding. The crowdfunding is a Reg CF. So it's SCC regulated on WeFunder. We are doing a rev share model. So if you want to see and help us create a competitive marketplace so that we have somewhere better to source our food so that we can make America healthy again, check out the new hat. Love it. Then you can help us by getting involved in our crowdfunding. We've raised $118,800 so far. That's just from friends and family. We just made it go live in public to everybody else. We're starting our marketing for this so that we can drive more traffic. So 118,000 from friends and family has been phenomenal. People that follow us on social media, and we're absolutely grateful. That's going to go a long way. We've got some really big plans for this. We're going to be adding producers, increasing our software. So if you go to fromthefarm.org, you can buy already right now from farmers and ranchers throughout the country. But there's always improvement we can do on the software. So this system is built for and by the people. We spent, like I said, 3.5 years of research and development, talking to farmers and ranchers, talking to customers, finding out what would make sense to bring people together. And we spent that time researching it before we even bothered building our first line of code. And then in July of 2023, we started the software build. And then in March of this year, we did the soft launch for the MVP. I'm happy to report that as of last week, we just successfully did our 100th successful delivery from farm to family. We've been going at a pace that we can manage our software and improve it as we go. And so it's a big deal. When you launch a software and you get to 100, that's a pretty big benchmark for us. We're thrilled for. So, you guys getting involved just going to help us grow that even more and hopefully stop the possibility of a famine because I say that tongue in cheek, but man, we're close. Do you guys know any good farm inland empire? Check out fromthefarm.org. There's a map feature there that will show you people that are closest to you. So yeah, doing good on the crowdfunding. We're grateful for everybody involved. We've had some phenomenal feedback from people as you go if you go to the WeFunder page, or if you go to fromthefarm.org and click the investment button there, you can go read some of the comments of the people invested and why they're invested. And that's really just special for us to hear why people are getting behind this. So yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate the support on here. So that's it. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to ask any more questions, and I'm going to roll this last video as we exit. I hope today's information was helpful. I have to say, I'm going to post this up real quick. I have to say it's the most user-friendly software to use and best as you can. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate all your support. You've been awesome for us. So yeah, I'm going to roll this hero video that we created with Harmon Brothers Marketing. Love every partner we have here. I'm telling you guys, God's driving the bus. We're just, doing what's asked as we go. There's miracles that are happening daily, things that come up or things that change where we know what we're up against. We know the challenges we're going to face in regulation because of threats that we're going to bring to the existing oligopolies that control everything. So, that's why we did a crowdfunding. We're looking for the strength and the will of the people to help us. We're not just looking for money. I could go find money. I just went to a conference in Denver that was phenomenal. It was a room full of, I say phenomenal, it was interesting, but it was a room full of investors wanting to get into regenerative agriculture. I learned a lot. There was like $20 billion represented there. But my observation was the primary conversation was around their ROI more than now. Maybe that's not a fair assessment. I think the room was probably split. That there are people there that really want to find a way to invest in new food systems so they can make a positive impact. But then on the other side of it, there's a heavy undercurrent, which is understandable. It's the space we're in, but there's a heavy undercurrent around how do I make a profit and how do I make a lot of money? Because that's what my, capital group is designed for. Whereas we look at this and we say, no, we're going to be of service first, and value, profit, and revenue is a byproduct of being of service. Now, we have a really strong business model. The platform where you buy and sell food is designed that the farmer and rancher earn the majority of that dollar. We want to make sure that the food dollar that is made, that goes into the pockets of the producers as much as possible. So we take a small commission, 15%, that helps us increase the platform technology and the marketing. But where From the Farm will generate revenue is all of the other opportunities we have to offer really incredible products or services that will serve people and their families, depending on what their interests are. If you want to grow your own garden, we have people that we can connect you with. If you are looking to replace some of your shelf-stable salts and seasonings and condiments because you don't want the seed oils anymore, we're meeting small people, people that have small companies that are building these companies because they're tired of it as well. And so we're going to make that available for you. It's like the Siete chips. If you were a Siete chip fan, that was because it didn't have any seed oils. And we all hope that acquisition by Pepsi doesn't ruin that for us. But we're partnering with people. So as you check out, you can add to cart, and that's where our revenue will come from, and done on a large scale, as we believe that this platform will be. There will be plenty of revenue for the investors involved without having to take the money from the ranchers and the farmers. They need the majority of that so that we can keep them around. So we have a great business model. Lots of people excited about it, and it's done with integrity. Yes, it's been a lot of work and effort. Invest via website. Yeah, if you go to fromthefarm.org, you'll see a pop-up there, or a little banner at the top where you can click to go see more about the investment. Awesome. You guys are great. Stuck around a little longer, waited for any more questions, and I appreciate you. In closing, before I roll us out with this video, just want to say thank you all again, and don't forget to shake the hand that feeds you.
Showed us anything, it's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. It's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows, and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So fromthefarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves were empty.
We the people can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies, or buying local, is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
One more thing in closing before I take off. I will be on a podcast tonight at 7 p.m. I'll share the details on my Instagram story. It's @J_Richards on Instagram. I'll share the link there. Would love to have you. It's another live show just like this, but I'll be being interviewed. It's called The Great American Hicks Show. It's number 15, Sustainable Food Supply from Ranchers to American Families. Again, that's at 7 p.m. tonight. I'll share the link on my Instagram story here pretty soon. And I'd love to have you guys there and join us. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Shake the hand that feeds you.